It was barely 5:30 in the morning when Daniel Foster stepped out of his small apartment, the weight of exhaustion pulling at his shoulders like a physical burden. The darkness outside was still thick, the streetlights buzzing faintly, casting dull halos across cracked sidewalks. His lunch pail was old and worn, his jacket frayed at the sleeves, and his hands trembled slightly from another night of barely 4 hours of sleep. But what made him move forward was the small, sleepy girl holding tightly to his other hand. Ma, only 7 years old, still half asleep, leaned against him while he locked the door behind them. He worked 2 jobs and still struggled to drag himself out of the financial hole left by his wife's passing 2 years before. Life had become an hourly fight for survival, a reality he embraced silently because he had no other choice. Every minute was accounted for, every dollar stretched. And yet, even with all this weight, he somehow still found time every single morning to notice the same woman at the bus stop down the block. She stood alone, bundled in oversized clothes that didn't match, her hair hidden under a cap, her head bowed. Some people rushed past her without even looking. Others kept their distance. Daniel always made eye contact and always greeted her. He carried his own problems, but he never forgot to see another human being. If you believe kindness and second chances still matter, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach and inspire more hearts just like yours. Daniel didn't know her name, only that every morning she waited silently at the same time he passed. She always looked tired, as if she carried a heaviness even deeper than his own. He didn't know her story or if she even had anyone who cared. So, on mornings when he stopped at the corner gas station for coffee, he bought an extra cup and handed it to her with a smile as he hurried past. She never asked for it, never expected it, and rarely did she say anything more than a small nod of thanks. To him, it was just being human. To her, it was something entirely different. Daniel reached the metal fabrication shop where he worked the morning shift. The machines roared, sparks flew, and sweat stung his eyes within minutes. His back hurt constantly, and his paychecks barely made a dent in bills. But every day, after his shift ended, he picked up Emma from school, made dinner, helped with homework, cleaned the apartment, and then headed out again to his night job stocking shelves at a grocery store. It was a life of constant motion, one where rest was a luxury and dreams were something that lived in old photographs. Yet through all of it, he never complained. Life had taken almost everything from him. Already complaining wouldn't bring any of it back. The mysterious woman remained part of his mornings. Sometimes he offered a coffee, sometimes he helped when her grocery bag ripped, sometimes he simply gave a wave. And gradually, without even realizing it, she began standing a little straighter when she saw him coming. There were days when her eyes looked a little brighter, when she seemed to brace herself for whatever battles waited after the city bus doors closed behind her. She spoke rarely, but there was always gratitude in her expression, a quiet one, like someone who had never before been seen without suspicion or judgment. Weeks passed, then months. Daniel still struggled, still fell asleep sitting upright on the couch while sorting bills. The power shut off twice, and he had to come up with late fees he could barely afford. His landlord hinted more than once that the building's new management company had no interest in tenants who were behind on rent. Life didn't give Daniel wins, it only gave him more reasons to fight. Still, every morning, he showed up and every morning, she was there. One day, she asked softly if she could meet Emma, and Daniel didn't think twice. Emma had always been shy, especially after losing her mother, but she instantly liked the quiet woman with the worn coat and gentle smile. The three of them shared those early minutes at the bus stop, discussing school, weather, and mundane things that felt easier than the dark realities lying beneath. People around them began to talk, some assuming the woman was homeless. Others whispered that Daniel was wasting his compassion on someone who could never return it. Daniel ignored all of them. He knew what it was like to be judged unfairly, to have people think they knew your story because they saw the outside. And so he continued helping, because that was who he was, and not a man born to be rich, but one determined not to let the world harden his heart. One morning, Daniel noticed the woman wasn't at the stop. That day felt strangely empty. as if the world had shifted somehow. She didn't appear the next morning either, nor the one after that. A week passed, and he found himself worrying more than he expected. Emma asked where their friend had gone, and Daniel told her the truth. He didn't know. Something inside him felt unsettled. It was human nature to wonder what became of someone whose silence suddenly replaced their presence. Then everything changed. A letter arrived addressed to him personally, and not a bill, not junk mail, but the smooth white envelope with his name written in elegant handwriting. Inside was an official, gold-embossed invitation to appear at the headquarters of Windsor Corporation, one of the largest companies in the state, accompanied by a note from the office of the CEO. Daniel was not just confused, he was intimidated. Corporate offices were for wealthy people in suits, people who drove expensive cars and talked in earnings forecasts, not for blue-collar workers who barely made rent. But the letter requested his presence at 10 a.m. the next day, and something told him he should go. Daniel took the morning off work and wore the best outfit he owned, a faded blazer and an old tie. He dropped Emma at school, wishing he had answers for her curious questions. When he reached the massive glass tower that pierced the sky above the city, he felt smaller than he had in years. The lobby alone looked like another world of polished marble floors, towering windows, and people who moved with purpose, confidence, and designer shoes. A receptionist greeted him, confirming his name with surprising warmth, and escorted him directly to the top floor. Daniel stepped into a conference room so luxurious it could have paid 6 months of his rent. For a moment he stood alone, unsure if he was dreaming. Then the door opened, and the woman he had seen every morning walked in, and not in worn clothing, not looking fragile or uncertain, but dressed in a tailored suit with her hair elegantly styled. She carried herself like someone who commanded boardrooms, decisions, and entire industries. But her eyes were the same. Daniel froze, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. She looked at him softly, and then with an almost emotional exhale, she asked a question that would change everything. "You don't remember me, do you?" Her name was Rebecca Windsor, as CEO of Windsor Corporation. The same woman who had stood quietly at his bus stop for months pretending to be someone the world ignored. She explained that she had been going through one of the worst periods of her life here, recovering from a devastating corporate betrayal, a public scandal, and a failed relationship that had shaken her emotionally and morally. She had taken time off work, disguising herself to see the world from a different vantage point, far from her penthouse and corporate power. And every morning, Daniel had treated her with dignity and kindness, not knowing who she was, not expecting anything in return. He saw her humanity when most people walked past like she didn't exist. Rebecca told him that years ago, when she was in high school, she had lived briefly in the same foster home that Daniel volunteered at as a teenager. His kindness then had been the first time anyone made her feel safe. She remembered the boy who read stories to younger kids, who gave his own desserts away, who never once acted like kindness cost anything, and she had recognized him the first morning at the bus stop. She wanted to see if life had changed him, if struggles had hardened him the way they had hardened her. But every day he proved that goodness could survive anything. Then Rebecca did the unthinkably. She offered him a full-time position at Windsor Corporation at triple the salary of his two combined jobs, with benefits, flexibility for parenting, and resources to help him stabilize his life. She said she believed true leadership wasn't born in boardrooms, but in small acts of compassion done when no one is watching. Daniel didn't know what to say. He had spent so long fighting alone, so long expecting nothing from the world, that receiving kindness felt almost impossible to accept. He thought of Emma, their unpaid bills, the nights of exhaustion, and the future he had nearly given up hoping for. For the first time in years, tears welled in his eyes. Rebecca continued, explaining that she was also launching a new corporate initiative aimed at hiring and supporting single parents and financially struggling families. She wanted Daniel to be the face of the first success story, and not because he needed charity, but because he earned it through who he already was. Life changed swiftly afterward. Daniel quit both jobs and began working full-time in logistics management at Windsor Corporation. He was a natural leader, organized, compassionate, and calm under pressure. He had traits built from years of hardship and responsibility. His income grew, his stress eased, and he finally had evenings free to spend with Emma without collapsing from exhaustion. He enrolled her in extracurricular programs she had always dreamed of, and for the first time since losing his wife, he allowed himself to decorate the apartment again, creating a home instead of a shelter from survival. Even more beautifully, Rebecca became a close friend, and not out of obligation, but because she found in Daniel the grounding presence she had long lacked in her own life. Years later, when Daniel was promoted to regional director, Emma stood beside him during the ceremony. Beaming with pride, Rebecca spoke to the staff about how one man's consistent kindness changed the direction not only of her life but of an entire company. She reminded everyone that the most powerful transformations don't come from wealth, privilege, or position. They come from grace, empathy, and the willingness to do good without expecting applause. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps us continue bringing stories that uplift the world one heart at a time. At Y negation before the ending, comment below, would you have helped the stranger at the bus stop every day, even with struggles of your own? In the end, Daniel's life didn't change because he chased success. It changed because, when life pushed him hardest, he held on to his humanity. The world noticed, one person noticed, and sometimes, that is all it takes to turn the page and rewrite a life that once felt like it was written only in struggle. Rebecca rediscovered compassion in herself by witnessing his, and together they proved that small kindnesses are never truly small. They are ripples that carry farther than the giver ever imagines. When Daniel walked Emma home one evening, carrying groceries without worrying about overdraft fees or eviction notices, he looked up at the sky not to ask anything, but simply to whisper thank you. Because sometimes miracles don't fall from heaven. Sometimes they stand next to you every morning, disguised in worn jackets, waiting for your kindness to unlock the story you never knew you were a part of.